There is another very useful feature when we are defining our functions inside of Python. We can set defaults for our parameters. Let's take a look at this right now. So let's jump in and play with some default parameters, why don't we? So let's define a new function. I'm not feeling creative. We'll call it my function. And now it is time for our parameters. I'll do fname and then I'll do lname, but I will set lname equal to Smith when I create the function definition. And we need to end that with a colon, of course. Look at this. So I am setting a default last name. Pretty interesting here. Let me go ahead and print. We'll give the body something to do here. We'll print hello to, and then we'll go ahead and let's do a space there. And then we'll go ahead and do the fname. And we will then print a space. Let's add a space. There we go. And then we will concatenate, to use the proper name of what we're doing here, the last name. All right, so there we have it. We have something to do with our function. And now let's go ahead and call the function. Now the first test that we want to do here is let's call the function and let's go ahead and provide a first name and last name. So I'll go ahead and provide my first name and my last name. Notice for some reason I'm deciding to mix the use of single quotes and double quotes in this document, and don't do that. Yeah, I don't know why I'm doing it. All right, so we're going to file, save, and we are going to run this. What do we expect to see? Well, I'm thinking it's going to ignore the default value because we have provided a last name value. But let's check. So I think it's going to ignore the default. And look at that. Hello to Anthony Sequeira. It did ignore the default that was set. All right, great. So look at that. We can set a default and then we can just overwrite it with the function. All right, but I want to try another variation here. Let's go ahead and just give first name. So I'm thinking if we just give first name, I'm thinking the default will kick in. And this will say hello to Anthony Smith. Let's save and let's run to see if we are correct. Look at that. So we don't provide a last name and the last name default kicks in just like we were hoping it would. All right. So cool. Now, let's try something else here. What if I go in and I also set a default first name? Yeah, you were probably wondering about this. So I will set a default first name of Joe, or actually John, right? John Smith is the most common name in the United States, supposedly. All right, so there we go. So now, would I have the ability to do something like this? This failed in an earlier lesson when we tried it before. Yeah, there were a couple of parameters we had to provide. We didn't provide any and we got an error message. I think this would work and would print hello to John Smith. Let's try it. We'll do a file, save, and we'll run it. And look at that. Yeah, it's now going to work. Now that there are defaults in there for those values, it's going to work just fine if we just call the function and we pass no arguments. Obviously, if you set a first name or a last name or both, it will overwrite that appropriate parameter that you are trying to set. So, yeah, using defaults in your function definition, go for it. It's a great idea, and it can really help you when you are designing that perfect Python function. Thanks so much for joining me.